Sides of the Southland for Sunday, October 27th, 2024. Welcome to your weekly dose of Georgia Tech numbers and words. My name is Akshay Easwaran, and joining me yet again from the lovely city of Atlanta, Georgia, is Mr. Jack Purdy. Jack, how are you doing tonight?
It's been a lovely weekend. Had some I guess this comes out early enough where I think it's fine. Our My parents' new brewery opens up. Has been opened up in Toco Hills. So that's been a fun place to just crash at. Um, I think I do want to take a sec to acknowledge my our a friend of both of ours, Bill Cutts, passed recently, who was a staple in the tech community on campus the last 20 plus years. Like actually, really the last 40. He was an undergrad in the 80s. He was a triple jacket, got two master's degrees from tech, and then was really a huge guy at GTRI. And he had a sudden passing a couple Sundays ago or a couple Mondays ago. So thankfully, I got to see him the day before he passed, which hit me pretty hard afterwards. But it was good to see a lot of jackets all together to celebrate him after the fact, and he was aware of the stuff we did here and helped us out in myriad ways. But definitely for those that are somewhat tangentially involved at Georgia Tech, still we lost one of the really big icons in terms of just the guy who could get you in touch with anybody. Like that was what that was. Um,
That was really
and
true.
yeah,
And I think one of the things that you mentioned here and something I texted you too is like he just had because he was a guy that knew everyone, it was awesome to see that he had affected so many lives with his presence, right?
yeah,
Like he
yeah.
built this really awesome network, this really awesome community with his presence and with his ability to just be a glue guy
Yep.
across
Yep.
his tech experience. And um, tech is going to be a different place without him,
Yep.
for sure.
So without doubt, there's so many people, so many folks interacted with him. He did very good at what I try to practice a lot, which is just showing up and being present at things. He was very consistent at work, very consistent with his family, very consistent at coming to games at Tech. Like he took a season ticket seriously, even during the rough years we had recently. So um, yeah. Nonetheless, watched a lot of football this week. Got to watch volleyball today. Got to watch F1 today. It's Temperature is perfect. I haven't turned my AC on in like a week. It's been great.
It's honestly, I have to disagree on the temperature because it's been
Oh,
hot the last couple of weeks after it being
mid
like
70s?
65. No, it was hold on. It was low 70s 2 weeks ago. It has been high 70s into the 80s the last 2 weeks, and
I
I've
love
had
that.
to turn my AC on.
Love that
I'm
temperature.
this is the one thing that is carried over from living in San Francisco is that I'm so used to this middle degrees of 50 to 70 all the time, even though I only lived there for a short period, like 50 to 70 the whole time is
Mm-hmm.
perfect. And then and that's what I associate with fall. And as soon as it gets out of that range, it ruins my immersion. And it's so rough. It's so rough to do temperature changes on a wildly inconsistent basis. Speaking of wild things that are wildly inconsistent, Virginia Tech in a
Yes.
21 to 6 victory over Georgia Tech. And honestly, if we're being very blunt, Georgia Tech was also very inconsistent
Yep.
in
Yep.
this one, a second consecutive loss after a very good start to the season at 5-2, putting Georgia Tech and out at 5-4. A rash of injuries was the name of the game through this one as well. Same deal as last week versus Notre Dame. No Haynes King, no Kyle Eford, no Chad Alexander, which I think was actually new for this
This was
week.
new this week. Yep. Yeah. That was a different app.
Yeah. So you're down best quarterback, best run defender, and a honestly pretty solid
I mean,
part of the running back core.
scholarship running back now,
Running
literally.
back
So
core, and it.
it was a
Why don't you
mess.
just read through the drive chart
The
to
it's
set the stage?
My notes for this for the game overview is literally half the size as it was for the game before this. That we forced Virginia Tech to punt a lot of times, so I'm just not going to talk about those times. But we did force them to punt to start the game. We had what looked like a normal-ish drive for Pyron, who was starting his second consecutive game. We got a Aiden Burr his field goal to make it 3-0. Virginia Tech, we did nothing for the rest of the first quarter. Virginia Tech gets a touchdown early second quarter to make it 7-3 on a pretty standard drive after punting a lot. Two possessions later, we got our second field goal. Burr hit a long 50-plus yard field goal, which was really good to see him hit a long one after a mix of field goal blocks and just being just slightly off. See him hit a long one was good. It got him to over 50% on the year. Uh, Virginia Tech countered immediately. 9-play drive, went up 14-6. And somewhere in here, Jamal Haynes also went out in the game. He was in the locker room. He had his pads off at some point, but then he never left. He came back in the second half, but we were missing him for a stretch of this first half here where we were looking to get a double possession, potentially to get ahead, and that didn't happen at all. We There were 7 consecutive punts between the two sides before we blocked a field goal, which was the fifth we had blocked all season, which is tied for first in the country with Florida State somehow. And then Byron late first half, early second half, Byron was just not the guy at all. He was not making the reads were not there. He was missing open guys. He had a couple runs that he just ran into dudes instead of around guys that he could have done. But after that field goal block, he threw an interception immediately, and Virginia Tech was able to score off that mistake to make it 21-6 with about 4 minutes left in the third quarter. That was the end of the scoring, but that's when Aaron Philo came in, our third string freshman, who broke all of Trevor Lawrence's state high school records in Georgia. He had a massively long pass to Singleton, but we just could not. We turned it over on downs 3 times because we just dropped. Rutherford had 2 very uncharacteristic drops throughout the game. Could not get stuff going. The run game was just weird because Jamal was hurt and Anthony Carey was able to get some stuff going on, but otherwise we just did not have any execution when it mattered most, and we lost 21-6 out in Blacksburg. So
A very disappointing fixture, I think, all
yep.
considered. Made even worse by Gamecast and play-by-play going
Oh my
down
God, yes.
halfway through the game because Virginia Tech's stats tracking system just kind
It
of
it went away
exploded.
completely. Yeah, it was gone. Our friend, a writer on the site, Nishant, was out there. I think he was already in Virginia then. Sat in the press box for us, and he was saying that their final stats were all on paper after the game in the press box. There was no digital stats to start with, so they were all just taking pictures of an old school way to do that, which I had realized I had never been in a context where you keep track of football stats by hand. Done it for baseball a billion times, but I assume that's a
I'm
little bit
looking
harder.
at I'm looking at Kelly Quinlan's scorecard for this game.
Yeah,
Or at least the short picture, the offensive scorecard that he put out online. I have never seen this
I've never seen
ever.
something like that before either. Which speaks more to
It's
our
shocking.
it speaks more to our age more than anything. But still, I mean, now I'm kind of wish that was just always there. Like I'd love to just learn how to use that during a normal game, but I probably won't. I imagine Tech doesn't
No,
want
you would never want to use this. Not a chance.
it.
Not a chance. I don't think that this is as fun as I imagine a like doing a baseball scorecard is.
Baseball's a little
It's
bit
just
different, yeah.
yeah, way too much data to track, I think, in football and way too specific to get. Um, my thoughts on this game can be summarized as follows. Georgia Tech, because I have to actually specify in this case. Georgia Tech had multiple opportunities to get back in this game, and
Hmm.
took none of them,
Yep.
and wasted possibly one of the best defensive efforts, best defensive performances that they have gotten in years,
Yes.
just because they could
Yes.
not do anything with the ball. And I think a
Which
lot of
is
that,
yeah. What's weird about this is if you don't look at the score and just look at the underlying stats, you would think we would have won like 20, like you would have thought the score would have been flipped or we won like 21-10 or something like that. We outgained them 356 to 237. Our yards to play were 4.5, theirs were 3.8. Our EPA was just garbage.
you
Theirs
do
was
not want to look
garbage.
at the box score for this
Theirs
one,
were
by the way.
ours was more garbage than their garbage, but theirs it was still garbage all around. We actually had positive field goal EPA, which was nice. Virginia Tech had nearly 5 points in punting EPA somehow because Rodney Shelley was having trouble containing holding balls and containing catches. We nearly had gave away a touchdown because of that. Um, the only bright spot is Aaron Philo, who was actually positive EPA per play.
At point oh one.
It
And
was
okay,
positive.
point oh five on the ground too, to be
What if
fair.
so it's positive nonetheless, but that's I think that's more the thing here. It's like just the fact it was positive is what's impressive with just how sloppy I think offenses were going both ways in this game. To your point of like defensive best game in a while by yards, it's the fewest we've allowed in 10 years, which was a game against Clemson in where we let them score 190. I believe this was
That was the Deshaun Watson injury game.
okay, gotcha. And then I
So
saw
and Cole Stout came back in and was aggressively mediocre.
gotcha.
Aggressively mediocre.
And then let me read one more note in this flavor here. Oh, what do they have? What do they say here? See the 233 yards. It was the fewest we've allowed away from home since the 2012 Sun Bowl, and the fewest in a true road game since we held Virginia to 198 in 2009.
2012 Sun Bowl is the infamous Lane Kiffin game.
Yes,
Is it the hold on, I have to now double check.
that was against USC. Yeah,
Yeah, that was this was the infamous Lane wearing sunglasses at the Sun Bowl game, and no one has ever told the story about why he was wearing sunglasses. I don't actually think it's even mentioned in the yeah, it's not
I
mentioned
wouldn't
on
know.
Wikipedia that he's doing sunglasses.
Huh.
Fascinating.
Anyways,
Anyway,
but I
I mean
mean,
it's
all
funny.
all that to say, like Zach Pyron was just not the guy. I mean, we had a lot of hope for like he could maybe throw the ball a little bit stronger than Haynes. Wasn't really doing that. Um, just the reads were not there. So I mean, not great quarterback play. Kind of will spoil any party. But when you are missing basically two quarterbacks and you're leading, and the guy that is the main communicator on defense, like that does a lot to make it really hard to win a football game. Um, which just sucks to see, but Virginia Tech did barely enough. So, but yeah, otherwise,
Sorry, one more thing on the 2012 Sun Bowl, because
yeah,
now I'm like
you're in it.
casually
You're in it.
reading
No,
through
you're in it.
the
Yeah.
Wikipedia again. And I apologize to anyone listening for this segue. Do you know who the starting quarterback for USC was in that game?
Oh, I feel like I should know.
Don't look it up.
No, I'm not gonna. Oh, dang. It wasn't the guy who became the Rams quarterback, was it? Uh,
I will give you a hint. He played for the Eagles.
Played for the Eagles.
Actually, I don't
Oh,
think that's an effective hint. Let me make
no.
sure.
2012, I would even couldn't tell you who, like a 2014 Eagles quarterback was. Well, because it was Michael Vick. That's why. At some point in there.
It was not Michael Vick on the other side
Well,
of
I know. I mean,
this.
eventually he got to the Eagles somewhere in that ballpark when Andy Reid was still the coach there. No, I don't know. No.
It was Matt Barkley.
Oh, okay.
Okay. To be fair, Matt Barkley started the season. Max Whittick was actually the quarterback in the Sun Bowl.
Barkley, I
So
should have known Barkley. The first name I thought it was Matt Stafford because the Matt was somewhere in my head, and
Stafford
then that's
aggressively
why,
did not play for USC.
and he did not, and that's why I started thinking of the Rams and started thinking of their old quarterback who I now remember was an Oklahoma guy. I'm still forgetting his name, but nonetheless, this is not important.
Bradford,
Sam Bradford. That's right.
I think.
Yeah, Sam Bradford. You're right. You're right. You're
Yeah.
right. Um,
Here's Barkley's NFL history. Eagles, Cardinals, Bears, Niners, Cardinals, Bengals, Bills, Titans, Panthers, Falcons, Bills,
that's right. Yeah,
Giants, Jags.
man, what a perfect Josh McCown.
Josh McCown was way better at this than Matt Barkley ever was, to be fair. Anyway,
Well,
to get back to the game. Again, worst offensive performance I've seen from this team, I think in this era of this team, and also honestly probably in a long time.
let's remember we did score against Ole Miss a couple years ago. So
It
there's
is
this
one of it is one okay, let me adjust my statement. It is one of the worst performances of this team when they're not being
aggressively poorly coached.
that.
Yeah, this was. I mean, I
When
don't
they
think we're
have like when they've established baseline competence,
right.
this
Right.
is one of the worst performances that I've seen in 10 years.
And I think this is a
Offensive
glaring
performances.
view into how we're still recovering building depth. How like the current depth that's like that we're not trying to redshirt right now just isn't all the way there for us. But then you go peel under the curtain a little bit more of what the future of this team's supposed to look like, and you see Aaron Filer, you see Isaiah Canyon, who got a couple of good catches in this game, and it's like, oh, there is a path forward for this team that we got to see a little bit of, and we we might see more Philo this year, depending on how injuries shake up. Which hopefully we won't need to worry about that because we got a week off coming up. But like Philo's a gunslinger. He is easily a better thrower than I think you would say both of the guys that have been ahead of him right now.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, on that throw to Singleton, Singleton has to make an adjustment just because the flight path of the ball, but he makes that adjustment and is able to create a little bit more separation
right.
because of where Philo is able to put that ball. It is legitimately one of the best throws that
That's the
I
best
have
throw
seen
yeah.
a Georgia Tech quarterback make in years.
That was hands down
Like,
my the best throw I've seen since I became a fan. Like since I got to campus.
I
Like
do not think like I would have to go back and watch like 3 or 4 years of tape on Justin Thomas. And obviously Justin Thomas was a decent passer.
right,
That was
yeah.
why he was so good at running the option.
Mhm.
I do not think that he has uncorked something like that before. I
No,
would I
no.
would really have to go dig.
The absolute laser of that was just insane. And I do wonder if just the fact that he just throws such a harder ball was why there were some timing issues and some later plays that looked like they should have been catches but weren't. Avery Boyd got just I don't know, he just dropped that one in front of the end zone that turned
Yeah, I
into
mean it hit
Philo's
him in the
interception.
pads, right? Like
Yeah, like there was two, and Malik dropped one in the same on the fourth down play the second in the fourth quarter as well in the same regard. Um,
I
so
mean
it's
it he
but like
throws a
that makes sense.
fastball.
Philo's not
He,
throwing to these guys most of the time in practice. Like they need to get ready with King and Pyron because that's the established hierarchy. Like Philo's throwing to Canyon and stuff like that.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, look, he's got a little bit of extra juice. Like he's throwing fastballs. He's not changing speed. I don't think that the speed thing is that big of a deal. It's also
probably not,
probably a
but
fixable problem if you
yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like a problem. But I think once again, he had good blocking around him. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't really being rushed on his throws.
No,
And he was getting the ball out quickly, hitting his receivers where they needed to be. It's just that for a lot of the time they just drop the ball. And whether that's adjusting the speed of the ball that's coming out or just variance in terms of passing outcomes, I don't know.
yeah.
But those are
He
balls
and
that you need to catch. Like
that yeah.
if you look at the old PFF offense grade versus ESPN QBR chart that our friend on Twitter, CFB Numbers, puts out every week. And now I'm trying to dig that chart out so I can compare it mentally. QBR hates Philo. It's a sub 50% for Philo because of the EPA, the damage to
Right.
EPA that those drops are doing.
The
But if
four
you
the
look at
miss yeah, good, good.
well, I was going to say, but if you look at his PFF offense grade, they're not, it's right around 80. It's like just a
That's
little bit
great.
under 80. It's
That's great.
really good.
Yeah.
What that tells me is that his outcomes, so it's variance, right? His
Right.
outcomes are bad, but his process is good. Like
Right.
the
Right. Right.
throws that he's missing on there are not turnover worthy plays. They're just unfortunate outcomes.
Right. I think that's what we all saw with the eye test certainly showed that too. Like it was something just exciting to watch. They obviously needed something to spark the offense during this and during that fourth quarter, just because like we were 2 scores away from making this a game. Like we were not dead until
They were not dead. No,
yeah.
they're not dead at all. It's a two-score game. You know that you have an offense that can produce. It's just the offense did not produce. I mean, they
Right.
had some juice once Philo came in and he was working the ball down the field, but they didn't finish drives, right? So it comes back down to that. What's your execution like? What's the scheme look like?
Yeah.
What other pieces of that do you need to evaluate and adjust for a guy that you don't, I mean, fans don't know really what to expect from him on the ground, but now they know what to expect from him through the air, right? He
Right.
throws a
Yeah.
good ball, he throws it at pace, he puts it in the right spots. Obviously, like he was 11 for 25 on my sheet. So,
Yeah.
a little bit of like maybe take a little bit of the putting in the right spots, but like we said, a lot of drops. So,
I'm
um,
looking at the fourth quarter box score. I didn't look at this beforehand, and this is really gonna put the nail in the coffin of like we wasted this game. Total yards for Tech in the fourth quarter, 122. 105 of them through the air on 9 of 22 in that unfortunate pick. Virginia Tech had the ball for 1 minute less than us. We had it for 8 minutes. They had it for 7. They had a total of 9 yards in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I mean,
That
like
is a
Tech had a
wasted
drive.
that is a wasted opportunity and then some. Like that is just unforgivable. Now there was okay,
Tech
negative there was 4 of those lost on kneel downs, so it was more like 43 yards. Still, point stand.
Tech gets down to the VT, what is that? The VT 25, and it gets onto the VT side of the field. That's probably the 41, on two consecutive drives in between punts. And I think they pick up that there was a pick or something. No, there was a punt. Like all four of Tech's final drives ended in turnovers on downs. They went
Yeah.
for it each of those times on fourth down and could not get a conversion.
And
And
they were
that
in,
just
and these were
sucks.
doable plays too. They were all doable. Like there was a 4th and 1, a 4th and 4, a fourth and okay, the last one's a 4th and 10, but still, like those first couple were totally doable. Like,
Fourth and one, fourth and four, like you said, fourth and 10, which whatever, that one's you have to go for it at that point in the game.
yeah, that's
You
fair.
have no real choice.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think the other one is also fourth and 10. So, um,
It's
oh
just
no, I'm just missing a play at the
yeah.
end of the game. Anyway, the stats are super borked for this. Don't like, or borked in some places for this. Plays are missing, but like the, I think I don't really have anything interesting to say on this. Like on the advanced stat side, like there was
It's just
complete
bad football.
domination. We
It
were just going to be talking in circles, but just to drive home how bad this offensive performance was, 17 highlight yards all game. That is like a tenth of what they usually get. A fifth percentile rushing performance for a team that hung like some absurd number of rushing yards on Jeff Collins and UNC a couple weeks ago. Like it's putrid. Like I'm not gonna beat around the bush about it. It's terrible.
yeah.
Flush this one and move on. There's nothing that you can really do. You have a week to reset, and then Miami comes to town. That kickoff time has still not been set.
Yeah.
I think that's also on a 6-day hold. So we'll take a look at when that homecoming game will be assigned, and plan accordingly. But yeah, that's kind of what's next. It's just take the second bye week, really reset, really evaluate what your options are, get healthy if you need to.
That's the big thing. That's the big thing is we just got to get healthy. Like that was so much of this game is winnable just because of who is on the not on the field. I think that's pretty evident. Of note, Jordan Williams, 49th start, most ever for a Tech offensive lineman. So
That's fascinating.
consistency. Yeah.
The last thought I had on this game is that for NFL heads out there, and Jack, you may also remember this. Do you remember the 2012 Colts season where they had to start Curtis Painter the entire year because Peyton Manning had some sort of like vertebra
Oh,
back
was that the
issue?
year? Was that the neck fusion year?
Yeah, it was a neck fusion year. And
Okay.
there was in December of that year after the Colts had went, I think it was like 3-13, maybe 2-14 or 1-15. There was an article in probably ESPN that said Peyton Manning should win MVP because it's so clear. They didn't make any large scale personnel. No, seriously, they didn't make
Yeah.
any large scale personnel changes. They didn't make any sort of like big free agency acquisitions or whatever. It was effectively the same team as the previous year. The only difference was that it was Curtis Painter instead of Peyton Manning, and Curtis Painter is not Peyton Manning.
Yeah. No, I see. At 2-14 in 2011. Yeah. And Jim Caldwell got fired after that. Uh,
Yeah, and
I get. I see the point. That's wild. Yeah.
the
And then
only difference is that it's not Peyton Manning, and obviously now you're talking about Haynes, not equivocating Haynes King and Peyton Manning is a dangerous game. I'm not doing that in exact terms, but it does
yeah,
make you
yeah, yeah.
think in terms of positional value or in terms of player value, how important Haynes King, the type of even the somewhat neutered, like kind of more conservative version of Haynes King that we've gotten this season, how important that is to Tech being successful with the ball in the last two games. Mostly this one rather than the last one, honestly. They still were moving the ball last game.
Yeah.
Um, so that's something to consider, right?
Their best
That
game was
is
a loss to Tom Brady's Patriots, 31-24, and I'm not counting the 2 games they won. They lost that game, but that was their best output game the entire year, like with Curtis Painter.
God, Curtis
Football,
Painter was
football man, football
Curtis
man.
Painter was terrible. Purdue guy, I think, actually played at
Maybe. All
Purdue.
right, that's a different
Anyway,
conference. We're not
we're
in
now
the conference.
starting. Yeah, we're
Uh,
well, let's take a
five and
timeout. Let's take a timeout before we get too far afield talking about the 2012 Colts. We'll be back to talk about volleyball, a little bit of golf, and a lot of other stuff back in a bit.
One of my goals in life is to own every single Section 103 shirt. I don't know how I'm going to do that. I don't have money for that, but maybe one day I will. We'll see. But you can start that mission for your own if you want. Eric Singleton Jr., Haynes King NIL shirts are fully available on Section 103's website, which just has the best stuff. We're getting close to Christmas, so which means you can get the Feliz Bobby Dodd sweater, which is easily, I think, one of the best just single pieces of tech merch out there. You can find that stuff on campus all the time. If you want to get 10% off your order, you can use code FTRS, all caps, and that will apply to literally any order. It doesn't matter how large or how small, you can do that. And if you spend $80, you get free shipping, or just don't ship it and go to a game at O'Keefe or Bobby Dodd. You can just buy the stuff right there on site in the stadium. It's a great place to do that. The volleyball stuff is really good. The football stuff is really good. And historically, there's some discounts if we beat ranked teams. And we got a couple chances coming up here. The likelihood, we'll see, but there is the chances there as well. But you can find them at section103.com or at section103 on Twitter and on the Instagrams.
Welcome back to Signs of the Southland for October 27th. Let's talk a little bit of volleyball, shall we? Two fixtures this week versus the first half of the Research Triangle contingent. NC State on Friday, a 3-0 sweep, and then a Wake Forest 3-1 victory earlier today. Jack, my main thought coming off of a week in which I didn't watch a ton of volleyball and check back into the team this weekend, Logan Wiley is getting a lot of play from
Uh-huh.
what I understand these
That's
days.
right.
And Tech is starting to find its groove again after a rocky start to ACC play. And I'm not going to pin it all on a freshman, but I also kind of want to pin it all into a freshman. What
Well,
say you?
it's so to provide some context as to why she's even playing in the first place, it's because Larissa Mendez isn't playing. She's missed the last couple weekends because of either some sort of a lingering leg injury that was just been nagging her throughout the year, where they just didn't want her to play against Clemson. Um, then she didn't, and then I think she got ill this last weekend. I think she got ill against on Friday or something. So she wasn't playing today. Whatever. All that means is Larissa Mendez has been out for a little while here. Um, and it provided some problems in the middle because we were trying to do the Laura Harper or Leah Harper or Laura Fisher right side block side to use that to replace her, and it just was not working really at all in that context. And so what we did is we shifted Liv Mokridge over to right side, who is the tallest person on the team and has got a very strong attack arm, which is what that was the big thing we are losing from Mendez. And we put Logan Wiley in as the second middle blocker behind DeAndre Pierce. And here's the thing: Wiley can jump higher than Pierce. She can hit the ball a little bit harder than Pierce. She serves very consistently. She serves from like 4 feet behind, like 4 feet, like a solid 2 feet behind the surface line, and just puts a lobber in, but it dives in the court really quickly. Kind of a little bit of knuckle action. There's a reason this girl was first team All American per volleyball mag of high school players last year, and she was in her backyard this whole time, and she's been a difference maker. That's without a doubt. Now everyone else still has to play around her well, but basically they have solved playing with only 5 to 6 at full strength, and now they're playing 6 to 6 on the court at full strength. And that's a huge difference against pretty good. And now we're playing decent teams. Like North Carolina State's not amazing, but Wake Forest took us to 5 last year, and they today were absolutely playing up to. They played up to Tech's level a few times throughout the match, and they got a set off of us. And it wasn't for Tech being bad. Like Wake actually earned the set that they got. Um, but yeah, so we're in this weird part where they had to like reinvent themselves when Eloise Suarez went out and she's still out. Then they had to reinvent themselves again after Mendez went out. Then they did it. Now they're gonna have to reinvent themselves when Mendez comes back and Logan Wiley has to play. Like you can't not play her now. She's doing too well. So we're in a
Just
we're gonna get
play
a
them both.
we're gonna get a new version of this team that we have never seen before very, very soon, which is gonna be very fun. Because we need to have our best version ourselves very soon, considering we go to California pretty darn soon to play the
Next
schools.
week,
We
both
gotta
of
go.
them.
Next week is the rest of the triangle. So we got two more matches left before then.
Oh
But
man, did I miss my?
yeah,
Did I?
we
Oh,
got Duke and second place in the ACC, North Carolina coming up next. Uh, I
ugh.
bet that's a North Carolina schedule thing more than anything. But that is the context to why there's this Logan Wiley thing. She had her career high of like 4 or 5 games. She hit 562 today on 9 swings. Error wise, it was very good outside of Otane, who was just swinging the ball a lot. Which is 12 errors. It's fine. She had 078, but it was a fine 078. She was fine at the service line as well. Bertolino, 19 kills, 15 digs. So good. Emiliano, 51 assists was great. Um, I think in terms of like the bounce back ability that this team has, which I've noticed a lot, after they lost that second set, they came out guns blazing in the third and 125-15. Never gave Wake a shot. And they were up 9 at like 20-11 in the fourth. Wake came back some. I think we kind of left the gas pedal, but cleaned it up. It was fine. So we're looking for a stretch of the season where we have to win every match, or else or else we're going to be in a problem spot. We're winning all these matches. We fixed the issue that made us look terrible against Clemson for 2 sets, and then reverse swept them. And now we're looking like Tech volleyball is supposed to look like, um, and justifying our ranking, which I was worried we were not. We're 17th in the country right now, and that was not what we were. I would say a couple weeks ago, but we're there now, and I'm looking at Evolve now. They've got a 16th in front of TCU and behind Minnesota, which feels about right. Um, it's given us a really bad luck percentage, but I don't really care about luck on this website. In all honesty, um, I think we've regressed a little bit in all rankings because that's what happens when you lose one of the most efficient right side hitters in the country.
Mhm.
As just Chad Gordon, our guy on Twitter, has shown. But overall, we're still solid. Like we just need to get hot in November, basically in November and December. If we can get hot coming up now, that forgives all of the problems we had against SMU and against Pitt and everything like that, where we just looked like a shell of ourselves in those games.
Well, to be fair, I don't think the pit stuff ever goes away,
Pitt's
considering
different.
that
Pitt's
that one's just you're not operating on the same quality of volleyball or
right.
same quality of talent. A little bit more color. Eloise Suarez has not played since that Florida game,
She
period.
is not.
Does not has
She
not
will.
dressed, has not been healthy situation,
Well,
right?
getting hand surgery will do that. So, yeah, she's been in the cast for like 6 weeks now. She's supposed to take it off next month, so we might see her in California if things go to schedule properly. But that's all to be seen. She hasn't played at all, so it's not like she's had anything that would cause her to make that stay longer. But everything's on track for that, at least at the moment. But it's not like Emiliano's doing horrible. Like
Hmm.
what we need of a new version of tech has been unlocked. That's a workable solution against other teams, and it's giving us middle blocking presence that we didn't have before, which is really cool.
If you were looking at the evolving rankings, Tech is sitting at 16th. I don't think that this includes today's games.
It
Um,
does. It does. We were 15 and
uh,
4. Yeah.
It does. Okay. Well, so that after today's games, they're sitting at 16th. If you're extrapolating that out to hosting ability in the NCAA tournament, I mean, that's the last host slot. So
Yep.
depending on, the whole site variance and everything. Uh, so Tech is right on the cusp of being in that top 16 format or that top 16 space.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just gonna have to see what that turn in California brings, especially playing one of the best teams in the nation in Stanford. And where's California on here?
Cal, that's gonna be that's
California,
good.
Cal's not that great. So take
No,
care of
they're
business
the.
versus Cal.
I'm glad we get
But
them first before Stanford. I believe we were first on the schedule before Stanford, but
North
nonetheless,
Carolina's 28th, and then Duke is 143 in a ball
yeah,
rankings.
that'll be doable. Of note, I'm looking at our specific page. Today was a great Bertolino serving day. We had a couple good runs on our serve, which has been something we've debated about, like how efficient actually is the serve, and she was demolishing her serve today. And she knew, and a thing I've noticed now is she is not going 100% every single time now. I think she's learned, it seems like she's learned some lessons and will not overcook it if it doesn't seem right. like in the air or something. Like she's not, regardless of the toss, just giving it everything. Like she's getting the ball in, which is most important. And force them to field it over and over and over again, which is nice. Uh,
Yeah. I
with
mean, I
all
think
that's
she's still hitting it at pace, right? Like
the
even
pace is still
her
great.
taking a
Yeah.
little bit of like even her taking a
Yes.
little bit of off of it in order to guarantee that it gets on frame. Like I
Yeah.
think
And
I'm okay with that trade-off.
all that to say, we are, according to Evolve, we are fourth in the country in opponent serving average. So basically, uh, oh wait, that's wrong. That's digging. I got it wrong. No, we're good. Serve average is good. Like we're still one of the best like serving teams out there, and we're digging very well as well. Even with the fact that they teams target Sophia Velez, and that's basically all they do, and it does help us get out of system. Velez isn't just allowing aces though, or just piling up reception errors. Like she's still getting arms on the ball and doing what we need to do there. We have zero ball handling errors this season. That's top in the country because can't that zero is amazing. Um, and our attack errors are generally pretty good. Our service errors left a little bit left to be desired. Again, blocking we're just not even close to the national average and stuff like that. Um, I do want to see our hit percentage go up though, because now we have really we got stable middle blocking. We have an alternative to DeAndre Pierce and Mogridge. Mogridge had 14 kills today. She got her career high in kills today. Granted, being right side will provide that because she's not playing middle blocker, so she's going to get more swings. She got her record high swings as well. Um, but nonetheless, there is a clearly defined way to work and move pieces around that we didn't really get. We did this stuff we hadn't really seen from Collier. Like usually we just don't get injured for one, but we rarely ever see like people playing secondary positions and doing well
Hmm.
in secondary positions with her and under
I
her
mean,
system.
I think to your original point, I think it's just no one really gets injured, so she's able to play that standard lineup and to keep the bench short most of the year. And I think that's what we've seen the last 3, 4 years to the point where I remember a couple of years ago, I complained that she wasn't trusting her bench. And then it felt like the next couple of games after that, she was using her bench as a point.
And she's
Um,
been better about. I think the depth's also been a little bit better too. Today was
yeah, the
just
depth
Fish.
has improved in quality.
Today was just Sandin and Fisher. Fisher would come in uh, when we were serving and take Emiliano off to provide height on the block for the first ball over, and then Sandin would come in at times for Mogridge when Mogridge was going to be on the back row, and so they could have a better serve receive on the back. So it was all situational. Keep people out of spots they're going to probably take points away from us. So it, stuff made sense. Wake Forest played a bunch of players. Paige Crawford hit 12 kills. I know she was pretty good against us last year as well. So it's nice to beat Wake normally after how last year's game went, where we just suddenly couldn't set for each other, and that was the game where Eloise Suarez kind of broke the mold for us. So nonetheless, yeah, 15-4. We're 7-3 in the ACC, which is sixth right now. There's like 4 or 5 teams at 7-3 conference play right now. So we just got to
It's very
this.
competitive at the top.
It's competitive. North Carolina, as I mentioned, is second, but that's going to change because I have to imagine they're. I'm gonna look at their schedule right now. You say something.
Well, I was going to say this weekend versus Duke and UNC, if you get 2 wins here, you're sitting pretty well heading into a weekend in California. If you
Ah,
split that,
this
you're
is
doing
why
pretty well overall.
this is why North Carolina is second in the ACC right now. It's because they haven't played us, Pitt, SMU, or Louisville, or Stanford yet.
Yeah, so this is number one. And to be fair, like all of the Evolve stuff is adjusted, right? It's like opponent adjusted. And
Mhm.
there's still, even though their schedule has been soft, they're still top 30
Being
in the
16-2
nation.
is not nothing. Yeah, they have their only losses so far this year are to South Carolina, who can be pretty good, and then who's their other loss to NC State, not a good loss. Um, so that's the only I guess problem spot there for them. But oh well. What was I gonna
I
say?
would,
Oh,
but I would agree with your assessment that's in our notes here. Like Tech, if they want to be in that hosting position, needs to finish this next weekend 2-0.
clean.
And
Yeah,
they need to be 9-3 in the ACC. They need, and then I would go one step further and say they need to split they need to split at worst in California. I know that there's
yeah,
been
I agree.
some effect at the football level of teams that have gone cross country and played games. I think teams that have had done a cross country trip, whether that's going east or going west, are like 3-8. I think that's what the thing I saw last week was. So I don't know if that is going to hold
Yeah.
in this case. I don't know what the travel situation for these teams are. Obviously, non-rev is not getting charters. Well, some of them are. It just depends on the situation. Um, so something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
But
That makes sense.
you got to play the
Uh,
games that are in front of you first before you get to the weekend of the 9th. Duke and
yeah.
UNC in the Research Triangle. That is first up. Shall we talk a little bit about golf
Oh, wait.
before we head out?
Guess who won a conference game today for the first time in 30 matches in the ACC?
First, Clemson?
Syracuse.
That was Syracuse. I don't even know. I guess Clemson. Clemson almost beat us.
Clemson is still winless in the ACC, so you wouldn't have been horribly wrong. Anyways, yes, golf.
Let's talk about golf. Not much to report in terms of results, but it's East Lake Cup week in Atlanta. Pretty competitive field featuring some
Yeah.
recent NCAA semifinalists, including Auburn, Florida, and Ohio State. This one will actually be on the Golf Channel. So it's one of those few times that you can watch very, very good Georgia Tech one of the best Georgia Tech athletic programs currently on
Yep.
TV. So I would take advantage of it when you can. Tech has already put out their lineup for this week. Benjamin Reuter, Hiroshi Tai, Cale Fontenot, Albert Hansen, and Aiden Tran will all be starting, which is a weird thing to say for golf, but they will all be starting for Tech. Um, if I remember correctly, the format for this is NCAA style, right? It's a stroke a couple of days and then match play.
It is compressed, so one day of each, one
Yeah,
day of
that's what
stroke,
I
and then a day of match, and then a third day with semis and finals on day three, if you make it.
right. So keep that in mind. There's also a women's half of this with LSU, Oregon, USC, and UCLA. So interesting that they picked three Big Ten teams and one SEC team, but I digress. Not much doing
Oh well.
on that. Another note for me on this, if I remember correctly, Cale Fontenot was the individual champion last year. So
Ah, okay.
on the men's side. So that is something to monitor as well if he can keep up the pressure there. Jack, anything else in golf, volleyball, section
The
103, football?
the golf will be viewable in the mid after like the 3 to 6 time slot on Golf Channel is when they're putting it on, so it's not an all day thing. Um, Beyond that, yeah, no swimming this week. No other stuff this week. I don't have any full steam ahead updates, so nothing's come out on that. And that we wore the gray uniforms for volleyball today and wanted them again. I mean, seeing them in the O'Keefe lighting didn't really make a difference for me, but
They're
the only
terrible.
the only thing I can really notice that like, hey, this is cool is just how much it makes the gold stand out. But because it looks that the gold looks good, but I don't know. Not much else from
Anti-gray.
that. J Bat and Angel Cabrera were all there. It's cool to see them be at a Sunday afternoon volleyball match. Yeah, I mean that's about it. I would love to week off for. I mean, just closing out on football. It's a week off. Everything's about getting healthy right now. That is the main goal of the team. I do not go saying Brett Key needs to get fired or dumb stuff like that. Like this was a short-handed game, and if you're gonna be down these specific guys, it's very hard to win football games without the very specific guys we were without. So
Peyton Manning MVP theorem.
there it is. There it is. So
I'm
I think
just
that's it.
saying.
I think we
Jack,
got
take
this.
us out.
Oh boy, Jake missed a good. Jake would have had 10 minutes on the East Lake Cup if he was here. So
Probably.
hope he's having fun wherever in the world he is. You can find us at fromtherumbleseat.com. That's where we put up all of our writing. I just realized we have to do basketball previews. Oh boy. Well, we're starting one. Robert Pensa is running the show for 20 days of basketball leading up to first tip for us. I will try to do a basketball preview episode for either men's or women's coming up soon. You can email us at fromtherumbleseat.com it's fromtherumbleseat at gmail.com if you have comments for the mailbag, or if you just want to start a dialogue with us, we'll do that. Or if you want to like maybe apply to write for us, that'd be cool because I want someone to write for softball and baseball and other things. On Twitter, we're at FTRS blog. Jake is at Jake Grant 98. I am at Jack Nicholas. You can find Section 103 at Section 103 on Instagram and Twitter, or section103.com. This podcast is wherever podcasts are available. I will post it on Facebook. I'll post it on Twitter as well. This is on YouTube as well. We get a good number of views on YouTube actually for these. It's kind of cool. But beyond that, thanks for listening. Good luck. Go Jackets. Let's take this nice week off.